Hebrews, Hebrews. This is Israel Wake Up. This is our Women's Advanced Bible Study. This is the 1st of January 2026. Okay, we'll be dealing with, I'm going to revisit the book of Judith. There's some things in there I want to shine a light on and connect some dots to. And then, so you can go to our YouTube channel, to Israel Wake Up, check out our videos. We have over 150 or so videos so far that you can look at, examine, get the meat out. These videos will lead you to the truth of the Holy Scriptures. And if you like what you're hearing and receiving, I'm asking you to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And for those who want to support the channel and help it move along, we have our Cash App at the bottom of the screen. That too will be greatly appreciated. We here every Thursday night, 7 to 9 p.m. Central Time, for any Israelite woman that wants to join in and engage with our Women's Advanced Bible Study, okay? This is a non-Messianic channel for those that don't know. We deal with the Tanakh and the Torah, Tanakh being the Old Testament, so-called Book of Remembrance, and the Torah is the first 5 books, which consist of our law, our statutes, our judgments, and our culture, okay? This channel was created to aid and assist our Hebrews who are waking up in these last days to our true identity and also understanding who our Savior and our Redeemer truly is. Shalom and welcome to the channel and welcome to our Women's Advanced Bible Study. We're going to do our normal, which is a moment of silence, prayer. We're going to read Psalms. We have our Women's Health moment with Michelle and current events, need to know information, then our topic for discussion. We'll be dealing with why the 2026 financial crisis could trigger World War III, right? We're going to deal with that. Okay, and scripture reading, like I said, to be out of the book of Judith. We're going to revisit that and shine light on a few things. Okay, then we'll pick a scripture like we normally do before we close out. We'll read the scripture, break it down, we'll talk about it, then we'll close out. Okay, this moment of silence is for the Lord of hosts. And all of these doing to bring about our prophesied deliverance in these last days. Oh Lord, we come before thee. We appreciate you, oh Lord, for your patience and your guidance in these last days. Oh Lord, we thank you for your awakening of us to this great understanding of your word. Oh Lord, we see your mighty hand in the world's affairs and how you are constructing your people's deliverance. But we trust and rely upon thee. And for this cause, we honor and respect you greatly. Turn not thy face from us, but allow us in our searching of you to find you, O Lord, and to dwell with you. Peace be unto you. Okay? So we'll be reading our Psalms. Okay?
Shalom, everyone. We'll be reading Psalms 144. Blessed be the Lord, my strength, which teacheth my hands to war and my fingers to fight. My goodness and my fortress, my high tower and my deliverer, my shield, and he in whom I trust, who subdued my people under me. Lord, what is man that thou takest knowledge of him, or the Son of Man that thou makest account of him? Man is like to vanity, his days are as a shadow that passes away. Verse 5. Bow thou heavens, O Lord, and come down. Touch the mountains, and they shall smoke. Cast forth lightning, and scatter them. Shoot out thine arrows, and destroy them. Send thy hand from above, rid me, and deliver me out of the great waters, from the hand of strange children, whose mouth speaketh vanity, and their right hand is a right hand of falsehood. I will sing a new song unto thee, O God. Upon a psaltery and an instrument of 10 strings will I sing praises unto thee. It is he that giveth salvation unto kings, who delivereth David his servant from the hurtful sword. Rid me and deliver me from the hand of strange children, whose mouth speaketh vanity, and their right hand is a right hand of falsehood. Verse 12, that our sons may be as plants grown up in their youth, that our daughters may be as cornerstones, polished after the similitude of a palace, that our garners may be full, affording all manner of store, that our sheep may bring forth thousands and 10,000s in our streets. that our oxen may be strong to labor, that there be no breaking in nor going out, that there be no complaining in our streets. Happy is that people that is in such a case, ye happy is that people whose God is the Lord. That was Psalms 144. In reading that, I took from that when Saul was king and was after David, and he had to go to the Lord, and he did go to the Lord, to find out why was this so, and he trusted God that he would be there, the Lord of hosts, that he would be there to help him out of that, in which he did. Shalom.
Right, yeah, he's David is praying for guidance and for blessings on Israel and to uh, have safety, have a safety because of the times and trouble that he was in. Okay, yeah. So with that being said, we're gonna do our women's health moment with Michelle.
Yes, shalom, Brother Leonard. Shalom, everyone. Please note that the information provided on this channel is intended for general knowledge only and is not a substitute for professional medical advice or treatment for any medical conditions. You should not use this information to diagnose or treat a health problem or disease without consulting a qualified healthcare provider. Tonight's discussion is on detox water. Detox water is simply water that has been infused with herbs and fresh fruits. As the fruit and herbs infuse the water, they impart a refreshing flavor without adding any calories. Water intake is essential to our health. It helps remove fat cells from the body, increase the body's metabolism, and helps control cravings. Staying properly hydrated is one of the most essential things to do for your overall health, along with eating a healthy diet, exercising regularly, and getting enough sleep. Because the body cannot store water, we must constantly provide and supply it with water to maintain our body's many functioning systems. Water is by far one of the body's most essential nutrients, but drinking plain water can be a challenge sometimes. It has no authentic flavor. But with homemade detox water, we perk things up by adding fresh fruits and herbs for flavor and additionally nutritional benefits, making it a little easier to drink. There's nothing more refreshing, cleansing, and hydrating than a tall glass of chilled detox water. Detox waters are great for replacing high calorie snacks, getting you to drink more water in general, helping you through times of cravings. It's a general detox and it also gives you extra energy. Here are a few tips for making detox water. Choose fresh fruit and herbs instead of frozen or dried, and use spring or purified water. Exact measurements aren't necessary. The fruit gets soggy, so try to make only a pitcher at a time. 8 cups to last a day would be great. Detox water can be consumed every day as part of a healthy diet. It's an excellent and tasty way to ensure you stay hydrated while also enjoying the potential health benefits provided by the ingredients used. I will be reading from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30, and I will be reading verses 10 through 14. God's mercy towards Israel. Verse 10, if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to keep his commandments and his statutes, which are written in this book of the law. And if thou turn unto the Lord thy God with all thine heart and with all thy soul, for this commandment which I command thee this day, it is not hidden from thee, neither is it far off. Verse 12, it is not in heaven that thou shouldest say, who shall go up for us to heaven and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. Neither is it beyond the sea, that thou shouldest say, who shall go over the sea for us and bring it unto us, that we may hear it and do it. Verse 14. But the word is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth and in thy heart, that thou mayest do it. Tonight's discussion, was on detox water, and I read from the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verses 10 through 14. Shalom, everyone.
All right, so those verses remind me, it's like another witness to Isaiah, to Exodus 23 and 20, which we can see that from what he's saying, and he's proclaiming that he's nigh unto us. And we know that Yahweh can't be nigh unto us because of his essence. He's a consuming fire, and he can't be nigh unto us. So when you understand that, it's evident who this is, the Lord of hosts. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate that information. Okay. With that being said, we're gonna do our current events. We're gonna play the video. Then we'll get some feedback from it. Okay.
First real sovereign default of 2026, and it happened before Wall Street even turned the lights on. This is not a drill, it is not a social media rumor, and it is not a simulation. It is a confirmation, straight from port officials in Shanghai, that as of December 31st at 11:47 p.m. local time, they began turning away silver shipments headed for COMEX-approved vaults in the United States. The default clock is not about to start. It already went off. And when New York picked up the phone for an emergency lifeline to Beijing, the line didn't just ring unanswered. Beijing effectively hung up. China said no to the bailout. No negotiation, no counteroffer, just no. Earlier today, I told you we had roughly 48 hours before the system hit a hard deadline. That timeline just imploded. Those 48 hours have collapsed into less than 8 because contacts inside China are confirming something that was not supposed to happen until January 1st. The new export restriction on strategic metals is being enforced ahead of schedule, not at midnight on New Year's, right now. And COMEX is going to open on January 2nd, facing a physical delivery crisis that cannot be fixed with more paper promises. This is the event horizon for the silver market. This is the point where a synthetic pricing system, built on leverage and derivatives, collides with the reality that the underlying asset is just not available at the posted price, or at any price. When the physical disappears, the math that underpins the paper market stops working. And over the last 12 hours, while most people were counting down to midnight, the people who actually run the system were scrambling at 40,000 feet to stop exactly this outcome. Here's what has happened, documented and reconstructed from flight data, exchange notices, and people who were in the room. At 2:14 p.m. Eastern yesterday, the Gulfstream lifted off from JFK, bound for Hong Kong. Public flight records show the tail number and the destination, but the passenger list is blacked out. The people watching that ramp say it wasn't tourists on that jet. It was senior people from JP Morgan's commodities group, at least one high-ranking official from the CFTC, and someone from the Chicago Fed. Ask yourself a simple question. Why is a regional arm of the Federal Reserve involved in what looks, on paper, like a private metals deal? Because this is not just about a few bars of silver, it is about the plumbing of the financial system. It travels through swap desks, margin calls, and collateral chains straight into the core of the banking sector in under 3 days. The people on that plane knew it. That is why a central banker was sitting next to a commodities trader at 30,000 feet, trying to improvise a rescue before the holiday weekend was over. The jet touched down in Hong Kong at 6:40 a.m. local time on December 31st. By 9:15, the delegation was across the water, inside a conference room at the Shanghai Futures Exchange's headquarters. No cameras, no press. Just a handful of Americans, a table full of Chinese officials, and one proposal. The US side put a single, simple offer on the table. An emergency purchase of 50 million ounces of silver, cleared for immediate export. Payment would not be in dollars that could be sanctioned. It would be in US treasuries, wrapped in a bilateral currency swap, so the transaction bypassed SWIFT completely. And the lawyers had threaded the needle using an obscure carve-out from the 2019 Phase 1 trade deal, labeling it a strategic reserve transfer, instead of an export to dodge the new Chinese law scheduled to bite on January 1st. On paper, it was clever. In reality, it reeked of last-minute panic. Beijing took the proposal, stepped out, and looked at it for just over half an hour. Not days, not weeks, 37 minutes. Then the head of the People's Bank of China's Metals Division walked back in, looked the Americans in the eye, and said a single word. No, not we need more time, not what if the price is higher, not change the terms, just no. The meeting was over by 10:52 a.m. Shanghai time. By 1:30 p.m., the American delegation was back on the jet. And by 4 p.m. Eastern, the first Shanghai port began stamping silver containers bound for U.S. vaults with 3 words no one on Wall Street wanted to see. Export clearance denied. This is not online speculation. 3 separate logistics companies that specialize in moving refined bullion have reported the same thing. Pallets of silver on the quay, containers sealed, trucks idling with nowhere to go, still clinging to a January futures contract, thinking they are getting bars of metal. When the music stops, they are likely to be handed a dollar amount anchored to a futures price around 30 bucks an ounce, even as physical silver in Shanghai is changing hands near 90. A spread of $50 to $60 between the real world cost of metal and the forced cash price on your contract is not a rounding error. It is legalized confiscation, carried out in the open through rule changes almost nobody reads. Now step back from the silver pits and look at the plumbing behind the scenes. While you were watching the ball drop in Times Square, the Federal Reserve quietly pushed $34 billion into the overnight repo market. On the surface, the explanation will sound harmless. Year-end funding needs, standard liquidity operations, nothing unusual, except that just days earlier, on December 29th, the injection was around $4 billion. On December 30th, it was about $6 billion. Then suddenly, on December 31st, it jumps to $34 billion, an increase of more than eightfold in 48 hours. Markets don't suddenly need 8 times as much overnight cash because traders are feeling festive. They need it because big players are staring down collateral calls they cannot meet.
Okay. Anybody heard anything about this? Any feedback on it? They cut off the silver that's coming to America, which is if you know anything about it, what's going on with silver, you can see that's big. So it's already started. He said that 2026 is going to be a doozy. It already started. Any feedback on that? Okay. Go to this next one. We get it.
So, Donald Trump just watched federal marshals begin the process of seizing his properties. And the judge overseeing this case didn't just reject his legal arguments, she systematically demolished them in a ruling so scathing that legal experts are calling it one of the most brutal judicial opinions they've ever seen against a former president. And what triggered this financial catastrophe? Trump's own lawyers filed emergency motions claiming the asset seizures were unconstitutional, that the fraud judgment was politically motivated, and that forcing him to pay would cause irreparable harm to his business empire. The judge's response? She called his claims frivolous, legally baseless, and an insult to the integrity of the court. This isn't just about one real estate mogul losing some properties. We're talking about the systematic dismantling of the Trump organization's crown jewels, buildings that have defined the Manhattan skyline and Trump's identity for decades, now being cataloged, appraised, and prepared for seizure to satisfy a massive civil fraud judgment. And trust me, when federal authorities start putting padlocks on Trump Tower and you've got moving trucks outside 40 Wall Street, the reality of legal accountability becomes impossible to ignore. It's honestly hard to believe we're watching the Trump empire, built over 50 years and brandished as proof of his business genius, potentially crumble because he couldn't stop lying about how much everything was worth. Let me fill you in on what's been happening. This all goes back to New York Attorney General Letitia James's massive civil fraud case against Trump, his adult sons, and the Trump Organization. For years, James investigated allegations that Trump systematically inflated the values of his properties when seeking loans and insurance, but deflated those same values when it came time to pay taxes. We're not talking about minor discrepancies here. According to the investigation, Trump claimed his penthouse apartment was nearly 3 times its actual size, valued Mar-a-Lago at over $500 million when it was worth a fraction of that, and played fast and loose with property appraisals across his entire portfolio. The case went to trial in late 2023, and Judge Engoron found that Trump had engaged in persistent and repeated fraud spanning decades. In February 2024, the judge issued a judgment of over $450 million, including interest, and ordered the disgorgement of profits obtained through fraudulent means. Trump immediately appealed, but here's where the rubber meets the road. Under New York law, to pause enforcement of a judgment while you appeal, you need to post a bond covering the full amount plus interest. That means Trump needed to come up with roughly $500 million in cash or secured assets to halt the seizure process. According to Politico's reporting from March 2024, Trump's lawyers claimed they approached over 30 surety companies and couldn't find anyone willing to underwrite a bond that large using Trump's real estate as collateral. Why? Because Trump's own fraud case proved his property valuations couldn't be trusted, and no serious financial institution was willing to take that risk. And before we go any further, let's be real for a second. Asset seizures don't happen to former presidents. They don't happen to billionaires who actually have the money they claim to have. They happen when someone has exhausted every legal option, when courts have determined they owe massive sums, and when they either can't or won't pay. That's literally how civil judgments work. Legal analysts are noting that this ruling and the asset seizure process represent a watershed moment in Trump's legal troubles. Andrew Weissman, former FBI general counsel and a veteran of numerous high-profile prosecutions, went on MSNBC and made a statement that really should catch everyone's attention. He said this is the moment when Trump's entire persona as a brilliant businessman and billionaire collides with legal reality. For decades, Trump has claimed to be worth billions, has used those claims to secure loans and deals, and has built his political identity on being a successful businessman. Now, a court has found that much of that was fraudulent, and his inability to secure a bond is the market's way of saying they agree with the court. This dynamics, this creates a concrete visual that's difficult for Trump to spin. His usual playbook is to claim persecution, rally his base against the system, and fundraise off his legal troubles. But watching your properties actually get seized takes that narrative into uncomfortable territory. His base may remain loyal, but persuadable voters in swing states may look at asset seizures and conclude that where there's this much smoke, there's probably fire. The institutional implications are equally significant. This case establishes that even former presidents with massive public platforms and political movements behind them are subject to the same legal processes as everyone else. The reason your assets are being seized is because you can't get a private company to underwrite a bond using those assets as collateral. Meanwhile, Democrats are being relatively cautious in how they respond publicly. They're letting the legal process speak for itself rather than spiking the football.
Okay, any feedback on that? Anybody have anything about that?
Shalom, everyone. No, sir, I haven't. I missed, when did he say, did this happen before Christmas?
Before what?
Before the Christmas time, before the 25th?
It's 8 hours ago.
8 hours ago? Okay.
Right.
Shalom.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yes, shalom, everyone. Yes, sir. I was looking at that when it was talking about the embarrassment after Wall Street has seized his assets, and one journalist or person who's on YouTube was trying to, say that they're doing him wrong. He's like defending him. He's on YouTube trying to defend his these things that's happening to him. They say they're not giving him enough time to come up with the money, so they go ahead. They knew he was going to be able to do it, but so that's why they did it. And so he didn't have enough money he didn't come up with enough money to pay that. So that's how they're pulling it, and then they putting it all out. And I think, like, again, your enemy is my enemy is your enemy. You're my best friend. So something had to come about putting him out like that. If it just happened today, someone is leaking and making sure things is going to happen because of the way he's doing stuff right now. They couldn't get him one way, they're getting him another way by embarrassment because he's such an ego person. They're embarrassing him now.
Right, yeah, I played a video a couple of days, twice, I think a couple of days ago, about, it's like right now, I think it's up to 160 now, lawmakers, that they want him out of the White House as soon as possible. So to me, this is just another way that them get him out of there, because they're looking at what's happening as far as the global situation when it comes to all this conflict and all the conflicts surrounding him. So they're trying to get him out of the office. So they say. But, we'll see. Anybody else got anything on that? Okay. So here go our need to know information. I thought this is pretty interesting.
Lie that the civil rights movement buried Jim Crow, that the old order crumbled and the chains finally snapped. But what if that moment wasn't liberation at all, but transformation? What if the same power structure that once terrorized Black bodies with fire, fists, and law simply slipped into the shadows, re-emerging in the cold, silent precision of algorithms designed to make discrimination feel invisible? Today's enemy does not march in the streets or...
This is what I was talking about. Everybody been put us to sleep, but they're doing the same thing, even worse, with AI.
wear white robes. It hides inside code, inside data sets, inside digital systems that pretend to be neutral, while quietly rewriting your future in numbers you will never see. This isn't a glitch, a mistake, or a misunderstanding. Court algorithms in America have already been shown to label Black defendants as future criminals at nearly twice the rate of whites. A statistical sentence passed by a machine that doesn't know your story, doesn't know your struggle, and doesn't care. Our ancestors could point to the danger, the Klan's shadow in the doorway, the segregated fountain, the sheriff who enforced injustice with a grin. But now the threat is ghost-like, hiding behind corporate logos and glowing screens, punishing in ways so subtle and bureaucratic that most people never realize they've been targeted until the damage is done. And if this technology is truly neutral, then why do its decisions look like a perfect digital replica of the hatred this country was built on? Why do its errors always fall in the same direction, cut the same lives, reinforce the same hierarchy? As we trace the buried audits, the suppressed studies, the quiet admissions scattered through government and academic records, a chilling possibility emerges. One that forces us to ask the question no one wants to confront. If the old Jim Crow has been reborn in code, what else has been programmed into this new system that we haven't uncovered yet? The forces behind this technology are not just powerful, they are deliberate, calculating, and cloaked in a confidence born from wealth that feels untouchable. The multi-billion-dollar venture capital firms, the engineers chosen not for brilliance, but for obedience. The lobbyists who shift policy like shadows bending light. They never sought justice, they sought cover. What they promised was not fairness, but distance. A technological barrier that would allow the old machinery of racial domination to grind on without human fingerprints. With algorithms acting as executioners and spreadsheets masquerading as truth, they could maintain the same brutal outcomes while presenting them as neutral, data-driven, inevitable. They needed a clean face for a system that has always been drenched in the opposite. And so they built a mask, cold, mathematical, unfeeling, designed to sanitize the work that once required open hatred. What they have constructed is not progress. It is an evolution of oppression, a digital husk built to hide the rotting core of racial control beneath it. They found it in the Compass risk assessment tool, a piece of proprietary software marketed to judges across the nation as the ultimate of...
I am the People Shark here, Damon John, and I'm here to introduce...
human destiny. Hailed as the end of personal bias in sentencing, the system instead became the high-tech starting line for a catastrophic new cycle of oppression. An extensive, documented analysis exposed the system's true, corrupt purpose. Yes, and truly reform the system, they actively chose not to. A revealing study in Virginia confirmed this profound, deliberate choice. When AI recommended a lighter sentence or probation for a low-risk person, judges disproportionately rejected that recommendation. They actively overruled the machine, but only when the defendant was Black. They had a chance to let justice run free, and they pulled it back. The cost of this rejection is immediate, quantifiable, and devastating. Black Americans with the same low risk score receive jail terms averaging a month longer than their white counterparts. The system actively ensures longer Black incarceration, defying the very data it claims to trust, simply because the human hand intervenes to ensure the racial hierarchy is maintained. The people who hold the power are complicit in the digital betrayal, using the machine as both a cover and an executioner. This is the central theme of the digital Jim Crow. The oppression is not accidental, it is by design, and it is actively protected by the systems of law. This betrayal, this quiet war on our freedom, is exactly why we created Black Stories Untold. We exist to expose the lies they try to bury, the achievements they tried to steal, and the systemic operations they tried to hide. And charged with a crime you didn't commit simply because the computer said you were guilty. You have no human witness to argue with, only a faulty algorithm. This technology is now being presented as irrefutable proof of guilt in trials across the country. Our freedom now hangs on a blind, biased machine, one that stumbles through its decisions by reading skin tone instead of truth. This is how easily your life can be erased by a government-approved technological error.
Okay, so this so we come to find out that AI is a redneck. Anybody got any comments on that?
Shalom. Not surprising. We can see AI is taking over everything, every sector, not just, the labor jobs and warehouses and so forth. Even in the courthouses, we can see that it's taking over. But again, it's not good for us at all. So, like he said, even if AI does grant a lighter sentence, right? The judge is still in there to override that, and I just think it's off of feelings versus true justice.
Exactly right. And they're doing the same thing with these channels. They downplaying some channels and then they boosting some channels up.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's, like I said, come to find out, which you shouldn't be surprised. Like you said, AI is a redneck too. Okay.
Right. You look at who totally built AI. You know what I'm saying? Who is behind the scenes of AI? Yes, sir.
Right. You know saying? Just like you said, another level of the same system. Okay. So anybody else got anything on that? Okay, so we'll open it up for some Q&A. Anybody have any questions, any comments, dialogue, testimonies? And now it's time. Okay.
Shalom, Brother Leonard. I just have a couple of things I just wanted to talk about that I was reading today, and some articles and how fast this world is changing, things that we don't even know that is going on, right? So I was reading about this foundation, really that is doing a technology, right, for the highways. So what they're doing, they're taking the used tires, right, and using it for pavement now. So I think it was sir.
I saw that.
Yeah. Like I want to say it was like a 15, 20-mile stretch somewhere in between Alabama and Georgia where they tested it out. And they were saying that it'll be safer. The pavements will be, quieter. Your tires will last longer, things like that. So we're out and about in the world every day not having any idea of what technology is doing. So yes, sir. I'm gonna look that up right quick, just in case somebody wants to research that about that foundation that is testing this new technology when it comes to the roads. And one more thing I wanted to say is that I don't know if you guys read about this, but Donald Trump announced last night at his big party that he was gonna be removing the National Guards from the cities. Did you see that? Yeah. But he's claiming
the court system told him he had to do it.
Right, but he's gonna claim, you know how Donald Trump gonna do things. Right, like crime has been greatly reduced or something he said in his speech. So he feel like it's a good time now to remove the National Guard troops from, the US cities. And I'm like, but in the article I read, like you said, it was because of the Supreme Court.
Exactly.
Right.
And yeah, I saw that. He also said he was gonna, if it's necessary, he's gonna bring them back.
Oh,
Like like it's his call.
right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly.
Exactly. And he has launched his gold credit card out now.
Right.
He talked about that, but that has been launched now where the immigrants can purchase this card and they get a lot of perks with that. So it's just crazy. And he said something like all the money will be going to the United States government with reducing tax, paying the debt down, and he named a couple of more things or whatever. But the starting price for this card is like $1 million,
Right. Yeah.
starting
Yeah.
at 1 million. Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I was went back a couple of 6 months or so ago. They was trying to sell that to immigrants.
And that
Right.
he's finally launched it and it's out there
Yeah.
and all
Okay.
of that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just some.
So yeah, he's still doing a lot behind the scenes. And the
Right.
name of that foundation was the Ray C. Anderson Foundation. They're the one that's testing the scrap tires for
Okay.
highways. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I was gonna say something about that too. That if I'm not mistaken, they started that technology in Africa.
Oh,
And
didn't
now
know
they
that.
bring it over here because about a month or so ago, I seen where they was building roads like that, like you're saying with tires. It was in Africa though.
Mm,
So
okay.
yeah, maybe you want to check that out and see, you know what I mean,
Right.
how
Where it
far they go back.
originated. Right.
Right, exactly. Because I'm almost certain I saw that. So yeah,
Shalom.
okay.
I was going to piggyback on what you just said. I actually thought Sister Michelle was going to say something about Africa. I was shocked when she said Alabama and Georgia because over a year ago I saw they were using tires plus other things to do roads in Africa.
Yeah, I
Right.
saw.
And like Brother Leonard said, that's probably where it really originated
Right,
from, but they're
exactly.
making it seem as though it's something that they came up with. But the article that I read didn't say anything about Africa, but I will be looking into that.
Yeah, you can check
Mm-hmm.
that out. Give us some feedback on
Okay.
it. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else got anything? Comments, questions? Okay, I'll play this right here. Then we go into our topic for discussion. Okay, here we go.
You don't need a second job. You just
that has destroyed civilization without a single battle being fought. Not war, not plague, not economic crisis, but the moment a society stops replacing itself and begins the irreversible slide into demographic death. Population collapse. This is how a civilization dies quietly. Rome, the empire that ruled the known world for 5 centuries, didn't fall to barbarian invasions. It hollowed out from within as birth rates collapsed and the population that built the empire simply stopped existing. Japan, the 3rd largest economy on Earth, is losing 800,000 people per year, the equivalent of erasing San Francisco annually, with no reversal in sight. South Korea has a birth rate of 0.72, the lowest ever recorded in human history, meaning the population will be cut in half every generation until the country ceases to exist. And right now, in 2025, you are living through the beginning of the greatest demographic collapse in human history. 23 countries are in stage 5 of population collapse, not declining slowly, but collapsing. Fertility rates below replacement across Europe, across East Asia, across every developed region. The workforce is shrinking. The tax base is disappearing, and the ratio of workers to retirees is becoming mathematically unsustainable. Here's what should terrify you. This isn't a problem for future generations. The collapse is already locked in. The children who aren't being born today won't be workers in 2045. The economic crisis is already guaranteed. The only question is how severe it becomes and how fast it accelerates. This is the story of how civilizations die through demographic collapse, how it destroyed Rome, how it's killing Japan and Korea right now, and why the pattern says most of the developed world has 10 to 20 years before the collapse becomes irreversible. Let's start with Rome, because Rome proved the pattern 1,500 years before anyone understood what was happening. At its peak in 117 AD under Emperor Trajan, the Roman Empire controlled 60 million people across 3 continents. The census records are clear. The tax rolls are documented. Rome knew exactly how many people it governed. But by 400 AD, less than 3 centuries later, the population within the exact same borders had collapsed to approximately 25 million. Rome didn't lose territory during this period. The borders remained largely intact. The people just disappeared. Birth rates among Roman citizens had been declining for centuries. The upper classes, the patricians who built and administered the empire, stopped having children. Marriage rates fell. The educated, wealthy Romans chose not to reproduce. The poet Juvenal wrote in the 2nd century AD about wealthy Roman women who scorned the cares of motherhood and used herbs to prevent pregnancy. This wasn't hidden. It was discussed openly in literature and public forums. Why? Urbanization. The city of Rome held over 1 million people at its peak, the largest city in the ancient world. In cities, children are expensive, not assets. On a farm, children work. They help with harvest. They're labor. But in a city, their costs, housing, food, education, all expensive with no economic return. Roman elites enjoyed lives of luxury, entertainment at the Colosseum, elaborate dinner parties, philosophy, literature. Children interfered with that lifestyle. So they had 1 child, maybe 2, often none. The birth rate among patrician families fell below replacement by the 2nd century AD. Stage 1, urbanization reduces birth rates among elites. The Roman government noticed the problem and tried to fix it. Emperor Augustus, ruling from 27 BC to 14 AD, enacted the Lex Julia in 18 BC. The law penalized childless adults, denying them inheritance rights. It rewarded families with 3 or more children with tax breaks and preferential treatment for government positions. Each generation could ignore.
This AI tool will create
anymore. Before we jump 1,500 years in time, click the subscribe button if you want to keep informed about how 2025, Japan's fertility rate sits at 1.20. The population peaked at 128.1 million in 2008. It's now below 123 million and falling by 800,000 people per year. That's not a projection. That's happening right now. Japan loses the equivalent of San Francisco's entire population every single year. Stage 1, urbanization. Tokyo and its surrounding metro area contain 38 million people, the largest urban area on Earth. Apartments in Tokyo average 700 square feet and cost $400,000. A couple living in Tokyo pays 40% of their income just for housing. Add food, transportation, healthcare. There's nothing left. The average age of first marriage in Japan rose from 25 in 1970 to 31 in 2025 for women, 33 for men. Many never marry at all. That's to 15 years, the point where the economy can no longer function because there aren't enough workers to maintain society. Here's what that looks like right now. In Yubari, a city in Hokkaido, the population has fallen from 120,000 in 1960 to 7,000 today. The schools are empty, the hospital closed, businesses shut down. Over 8 million homes sit empty, abandoned. The military can't recruit enough soldiers. You're watching a modern civilization slowly go extinct. Now, South Korea. Let me show you what happens when Rome's pattern gets compressed even further. South Korea's fertility rate hit 0.72 in 2024, the lowest ever recorded in human history. Let that sink in. To maintain a stable population, you need a fertility rate of 2.1. At 0.72, each generation is 1/3 the size of the previous one. Run that math forward. Workers. By 2050, the workforce could be half of what it is today. Stage 5 is 15 to 20 years away for Korea. But here's what makes Korea's situation existentially different. Korea borders North Korea, a country with 26 million people and nuclear weapons. South Korea's military currently has 550,000 active troops. By 2040, they won't be able to field 300,000 because there won't be enough young men. Demographics could accomplish what 70 years of tension haven't: the end of South Korea as an independent nation. So let's identify the pattern, because once you see it, you'll understand you're living through it right now. Stage 1, urbanization reduces birth rates. Stage 2, government incentives fail. Stage 3, immigration provides temporary relief, but most reject it. Stage 4, workforce collapse, unsustainable math. Stage 5, economic and social collapse. Rome took 300 years. Japan is doing it in 50. Korea might do it in 30. The pattern is accelerating, and you're living through this right now. 23 countries are in stage 4. Italy, fertility rate 1.24. Schools closing, towns emptying. Spain, 1.19, losing 100,000 people annually. Germany, 1.53. Without immigration, shrinking by 200,000 yearly. China, 1.09. Population peaked in 2022, now falling. The workforce declined by 40 million in a decade. The United States sits at 1.62, below replacement since 2007. Without immigration, the US would already be shrinking. But immigration is now the most politically divisive issue in the country. Half wants to stop it. The other half wants to increase it. The political tension is tearing the country apart, even as immigration is the only reason the economy still functions.
Okay. Any feedback on that? What you think? Look like the hand of the Most High to me, Lord of hosts. Okay.
Shalom. Brother Leonard, I have a question, if you know the answer. So for years, there's been different groups talking about how we're about where, as in the entire earth, is about to be overpopulated. And it was really weird, maybe back in 2012, I was working with the HBCU and helping students in high school get scholarships to go to school. And during this time, it became more weird because there were organizations that had scholarships where these young adults would write, how do we help with decreasing population? And so I never knew why that was a thing. And I just am now inquiring, do you know why that was ever a thing to decrease the population?
Well, that comes from the high ups. They don't want and greed. They want to reduce the population because of they say they call us useless eaters, and they're saying that they production, they wealth would increase if they reduce the population. they make more money. They be wealthier. So they want to get rid of reduce the population. But listening to this right here, we can see that it's already being reduced. And me looking at it, it's saying it's like I said, it goes back to melanin. You know what I'm saying? It's a reason why the Creator God, He said that Israel is the apple of His eye. He gave us the ability, even in the beginning, He says, He told Abraham to be fruitful and multiply. You don't see him, you don't see that, you don't see him saying that to the other nations. But he told Israel to be fruitful and multiply. I mean, Adam's descendants to be fruitful and multiply, and he gave them everything they needed to do that. But you don't see these other nations, they because of who they are, they're not they don't have the ability to procreate in the way that we do. And like I said, it goes back to melanin, the melanin that's in us, that He put in us. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Right.
When I was, I don't know, in high school, I know some seniors, they might, not might, I had some senior friends that ended up pregnant their senior year. And I just remember those with melanin, there was never a thought about having an abortion. Um, but then also, throughout all these years of all the birth control centers that were made specifically for African Americans in America. And some weeks ago, Brother Leonard, as you were talking, I was thinking about, we had a class where you played a clip about somebody coming up with some type of birth control that lasts 7 years and giving it to people in Africa. And that made me think, as you were talking just now, that apparently as time has progressed, there's two things that seem to be going on. Again, they don't want us to multiply. And also that there's some people that think it's unhealthy for families to have more than one or two children. Like they just could not imagine taking care of more than one or two children. So there's sincerely some people trying to help people in the continent of Africa not have too many children. And it's strange to me.
Right. It's abominable because, like I said, when you go to Israel, when you go to the captivity in Egypt, the only reason we survived that was because of the numbers of children that we was having in our family, among our families. So that's the only reason we survived. Even today, the reason we survived, all the horrors that it came across us, transatlantic slave trade and all that, is the numbers of the children that we was having per household. Okay, yeah. Anybody else got anything before we're gonna go to our topic for discussion? Okay, everybody good? Here we go.
Yes.
Here we go. Let me get it.
Gunshot, an assassination.
So this right here it explains a lot about what I've been talking about. What people don't understand where we actually at when it comes to the end of this age that we in.
In Sarajevo, a surprise attack on a harbor, a tank crossing a border. But financial history tells a different story. It tells us that the gunshot is merely the final act of a tragedy that was written years earlier in the ledgers of central banks and the balance sheets of failing empires. War, in its truest sense, does not begin on the battlefield. It begins when the money stops working. It begins when a nation US debt becomes so crushing that the only way to erase it is to destroy the creditor. It begins when the global trade system fractures and it becomes.
That's where we at with America. Is at the end. So they have no other choice but to start a war.
Cheaper to seize resources by force than to buy them on the open market. It begins when the illusion of prosperity collapses, and leaders need a common enemy to save themselves from their own angry citizens. We are standing on the precipice of such a moment. The year is approaching 2026. The global economy is sitting on a $300 trillion debt bomb.
Exactly.
The United States is borrowing $1 trillion every 100 days just to keep the lights on. China is facing a deflationary collapse that threatens the legitimacy of its regime, and trust in the global reserve currency, the US dollar, is fracturing. Economists call this a structural convergence. Historians have a simpler name for it. They call it the pre-war era. In 1914, the global financial system broke and the world went to war. In 1939, the trade system broke and the world went to war. Now the indicators are flashing red again.
Exactly.
Welcome to the Financial Coin Historian. Today, we are not just analyzing a recession. We are investigating the terrifying possibility that the financial crisis of 2026 will be the trigger for World War III. We will show you the mathematical inevitability of the debt cycle. We will expose the war economy that is already being built in the shadows. And we will explain why, when the check finally comes due, the price will be paid not in gold, but in blood. This is the story of the war that the bankers built. To understand 2026, we must first look back to the last time the world was this interconnected, this indebted, and this fragile. The year was 1914. We are told World War I started because an archduke was shot. But behind the scenes, a financial war had been raging for decades. The British Empire was the financial hegemon of the world. The pound sterling was the global reserve currency. London was the center of trade. But Britain was an empire in decline. It was drowning in debt from maintaining its colonies. Its industrial dominance was being challenged by a rising power, Germany. Germany had better factories, better technology, and a hunger for markets. But Germany was locked out of the global financial system controlled by London. The British used their financial power to block German expansion. They restricted credit. They controlled the gold supply. This created a pressure cooker. Germany realized it could not grow economically within the British system. It had to break the system. When the financial channels closed, the military channels opened. The checkbook started the war before the bullet did. Bankers in London and New York had extended massive loans to alliances that forced nations into conflict to protect their investments. The lesson of 1914 is chilling. When an established economic power tries to contain a rising economic power using financial weapons, the rising power eventually calculates that war is the only path to survival. Today, replace Britain with the United States, replace Germany with China, and replace the gold standard with the US dollar. The players have changed, but the board is exactly the same, and we are moving pieces toward the same checkmate. The primary driver of the 2026 crisis is not ideology, it is arithmetic. We are living in the largest debt bubble in human history. Global debt has surpassed $315 trillion. That is more than 330% of global GDP. This means the world owes 3 times more than everything it produces in a year. In a normal cycle, this debt would be cleared by a recession. Businesses would go bankrupt, debts would be written off, and the system would reset. But we are not in a normal cycle. We are in the sovereign debt supercycle. Governments themselves are the biggest debtors. The United States owes $34 trillion. Japan owes 250% of its economy. Europe is leveraged to the hilt. And here's the trap. Governments cannot go bankrupt in the traditional sense. When a government cannot pay its bills, it has only 3 choices. 1, austerity, cut spending, starve the people, and risk revolution. 2, default, refuse to pay, crash the global banking system, and lose all credibility. 3, inflation and war. History shows that option 3 is almost always the choice.
Exactly.
Why war? Because war justifies everything. War justifies printing unlimited money. War justifies controlling the population. War justifies defaulting on debts owed to the enemy. If the United States owes trillions to China and suddenly they are at war, that debt is canceled. It is the ultimate financial reset button. Roll gave them no choice. As we approach 2026, the tightening of financial sanctions on rival powers creates the exact same dynamic. We are squeezing them until they lash out. While the US struggles with debt, China is struggling with something arguably worse, stagnation. The Chinese economic miracle was built on real estate and exports. That model is dead. Their property market has imploded. Their population is shrinking faster than any nation in history. Youth unemployment is soaring. This creates a dangerous window of opportunity. Political scientists call it the peaking power trap. When a rising power realizes its growth has peaked, that it will never be stronger than it is right now, it becomes aggressive. It feels the urge to lock in gains before the decline sets in. China sees the US attempting to encircle it with alliances and technology bans. It sees its own internal economy slowing down. The Communist Party's legitimacy rests on economic growth.
Here's a hot take. If you have a mess
And when a currency collapses, the government loses its ability to project power peacefully. It cannot pay for allies. It cannot subsidize peace. It has to use force to maintain its standing. The financial crisis of 2026 acts as the accelerant. It strips away the cushion of wealth that keeps nations polite. It leaves them raw, desperate, and armed. There's a final, darker reason why financial crisis leads to war: domestic politics. In the United States and Europe, the wealth gap is wider than at any time since the 1920s. The middle class is being hollowed out by inflation. Trust in institutions is at an all-time low. When the economy crashes in 2026, the anger of the population will be uncontrollable. People will demand answers. They will demand heads to roll. For the ruling elite, this is a terrifying prospect. How do you unite a fractured, angry, impoverished nation? You give them a common enemy. War is the ultimate social unifier. It silences dissent. It brands opposition as treason. It allows the government to seize control of the economy under emergency powers. It happened in the 1930s. The Great Depression fueled the rise of fascism in Europe and nationalism in Asia. It turned neighbors into enemies and paved the road to World War II. In 2026, faced with a populace that has lost its savings and its future, leaders...
That's where we are right now. White nationalism is what we're looking at. That's going to lead us right in the war. And like, listening to this, you can see it's a blueprint. They've been doing this. They just do it over and over again. They said at the point now where they have to come about with a war to reset everything. Any comments, questions? That's the tension that we seen and feeling in the air. Was getting ready to go down. Okay. So with that being said, nobody have any feedback on it. We're gonna go to our scripture reading, which is I was going back to the book of Judith because I was looking at it and I wanted to share some. There's just a couple of things in there that I saw that I wanted to make sure to get on the channel for anybody that's searching out or redoing their research and searching out. So I'm gonna read. Maybe I think it's a chapter or two of the book of Judith. Anybody know who Judith is? Okay. Anybody familiar with Judith?
Sorry about that. Shalom. Yes, sir. That was one of the stories where it's in the Apocrypha, and
Right.
she supposedly helped with what is it? A kingdom or nation, rather? I don't know the terminology. With them being able to kill that leader, that general that was in charge with the wars
Right.
they were having.
Right. It's sort of like Esther. Okay. So I'm gonna start reading the book of Judith. In the 12th year of the reign of Nebuchadnezzar, who ruled over the Assyrians in the great city of Nineveh in the days of Arphaxad. This is what my point is. This is what my focus is. This guy right here. I'm gonna go back in a minute and we're gonna go back and look at the lineages and deal with it's because it kind of slipped over my head. So it says, who ruled over the Syrians and over the Medes and in Abanika. Arphaxad built around Ecbatana walls of huge stone and a half feet wide and 9 feet long. He built the walls 105 feet high, 70 feet wide, and at the gates he built towers at 150 feet high, with foundations 90 feet wide, and he made its gates that rose to the height of 105 feet and were 60 feet wide, so that his host of warriors could march out and his infantry could form. So in those days, King Nebuchadnezzar made war on King Arphaxad. So let's see, King Arphaxad, okay, in the Great Plains. This plain is on the borders of Reggae. So let me show, I'm going to shed a light right. So we see the city called Ekabanica, and we also see the city right here called Reggae, which is Ragae. If you go to uh, Tobit, the book of Tobit, this is where the 10 tribes is at. These the same cities. They was in when you go to Tobit and you start reading it. They was the 10 tribes was in this area where the Medes and the Banica is at, and then we know that Tobit, the father, lived in this city right here, Raje. So I just want to shine light on that. He was joined by all the inhabitants of the hill country and all who live along the Euphrates and the Tigris and Hadashbi, whatever that word is, and on the plains of Ararat, king of Elishama, and many nations joined the army of the Chaldeans, right? Then Nebuchadnezzar, king of Assyria, sent to all the inhabitants of Persia and to all who lived toward the west, who was settled in Sicily and Damascus and of the Lebanon and the Antebellum and to all who lived along the seacoast and to the inhabitants of Carmel and Gilead that were heathens, and to upper Galilee and to the great plains of Ashkelon, and to all that were in Samaria and its towns, and beyond Jordan as far as Jerusalem, and Bethany, and Chelis, and Kadesh, and the river Egypt, Taphanim, and Ramesses, and all the land of Goshen, until you pass Tanis and Memphis, and to all who lived in Egypt, until you reach the borders of Ethiopia. But all the inhabitants of the land paid no attention to the commands of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Assyria, and would not go with him to war, for they were not afraid of him, but regarded him as just a single man. And they sent messages back disappointed and in disgrace. So then Nebuchadnezzar was very angry with the whole, he's a nobody right here. He was very angry with the whole country, and he swore by his throne and his kingdom that he would certainly take vengeance upon all the region of Sicily, Damascus, Syria, and kill with the sword all the inhabitants of the land of Moab, and the Ammonites, and all Judah, and everyone in Egypt, until you come to the coast of the two seas. So in the 17th year, he made war on King, here go again, King Arphaxad, and he overcame him, put Arphaxad's whole army and all his cavalry and his chariots to flight, and he took possession of the cities and reached Ecbatana and he took his towers and plundered the bazaars and turned its glory to shame. Then he took Arphaxad captive among the mountains of Reggie, and struck him down with his spear and utterly destroyed him unto this day. Then he returned with his spoils and all his motley army, a very great body of soldiers, and there he and his army took their case and feasted. Took their ease and feasted for 120 days. Okay, then it says in the 18th year of his reign, on the 22nd day of the first month, he was proposed in his palace of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Assyria, to take vengeance on all the land, just as he had said. And he called together all his ministers, all his nobles, and he set before them his secret purpose, and he fully related all the wickedness of the man which his own lips, and they decreed that all who had not obeyed the commands of the king had utterly uttered had uttered should be destroyed. And when he had completed his plan, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Assyria, summoned Harphan, the general of his army, who was second to him, and said to him, "Thus says the great king, the Lord of all the earth." Here you go. So I told you about this. He says, this is what Nebuchadnezzar said: "The Lord of the whole earth is Michael." Right? When you go from my presence, you must take with you men confident in their strength, to the number of 120,000 infantrymen and 12,000 mounted men, and you must go out and attack all the western country, because they have disobeyed the command that I uttered you. And you must call upon them to prepare the earth and the water, and in tokens of submission, for I will go against them in my anger, and I will cover the whole face of the earth with the feet of my army, and I will give them up to them to plunder, and to ravines will be filled with their wounded, and every brook and dashing river will be filled with their dead bodies, and I will send them as captives to the ends of all the earth. So we see right here, this is what Jeremiah already prophesied. So when you understand what the Lord continued to tell us, that I spoke it, I performed it, I'm bringing it to pass. This is a prime example. So he's just Nebuchadnezzar just told. Nebuchadnezzar just told us the Lord. The Lord told him to do this. The Lord came to him and told him to do this, right? And then at the same time, Jeremiah is in Jerusalem prophesying that Nebuchadnezzar is coming. And like I said, all these cities and all these countries I just talked about, these exact same countries are in the book of Jeremiah. When he says a scourge is coming from the north, it's Nebuchadnezzar. So they set it up. But this is my point, but I want to deal with like with this guy Oxford. I don't know if I'm saying it right. So if you go to let me do this first. Let me go there first. You go to Genesis chapter 10. And like I said, you gotta also look at the timeline. Okay? Just like they hook with the timeline when they telling you that Israel was ran out of the land, the abomination of desolation took place in 70 AD. It didn't. Abomination of desolation took place in 143 BC, way before 70 AD. It was Edomites in the land in 70 AD. Okay, they took over in 143 BC, and that's big when you're trying to write about the scriptures. So I'm in Genesis chapter 10. It's crazy. So I'm in Genesis chapter 10, and what's going on is the Tower of Babel. So where I'm at is I'm gonna start reading at 10. This is the where I started 7. He says, "Go to, and let us go down there and confound the languages." This Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, Uriel, okay, go down and make that they may not understand one another's speech. So up to this point, we got one language. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the whole earth. And keep in mind Jasher and what's going on with terror. Terror is the Lord of hosts for Nimrod. Okay, keep that in mind. So it says, so the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the whole earth, and they left off to build a city. Therefore is the name of it called Babel, because the Lord there confounded the languages of all the earth, and from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. So right here, This is when the whole earth got populated right here. It wasn't populated for that. So he supernaturally, he scattered people all over the earth. Okay. So then now we gonna go to the meat of it. Verse 10 said, "These are the generations of Shem." Check this out. This is what I was, and this just jumped off the page. These are the generations of Shem, right? Shem was 100 years old. See that? Shem was 100 years old. And he begot this the guy right here, Arphad. So this Arphad that Nebuchadnezzar was fighting with is out of Shem lineage. And it's right, and so this is right after the flood. You're gonna see that in a minute. This is right after the flood. But my point is this. See how old Shem is? Shem was 100 years old. Okay? That's how old Abraham was when he had Isaac. Right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Abraham was 100 years old. We had, and then they have in there that Abraham laughed and he says, "What man is it that have a kid when he's 100 years old?" Well, here it is right here. This is for Abraham. See that? It says Shem was 100 years old, and he begot Arphad 2 years after the flood. 2 years after the flood. So this Arphad, you know what I mean? See the timeline how they got it's off. They got the timeline off. This is 2 years after the flood. See, and Shem lived after he begot Arphad 500 years, and he begot sons and daughters. And I'm not saying his name right. Arphad lived 530 years, and he begot Selah. And Arphad lived after he begot Selah 403 years, and he begot sons and daughters. And Selah lived 30 years, and he begot Eber, right? And Selah lived after he begot Eber 403 years, and he begot sons and daughters. And Eber lived 430 years, and he begot Peleg. And Eber lived after he begot Peleg 430 years, and he begot sons and daughters. And Peleg lived 30 years, and he begot Reu. And Peleg lived after he begot Reu 209 years, and he begot sons and daughters. And Reu lived 230 years, and he begot Sarah. And Reu lived after he begot Sarah 207 years, and he begot sons and daughters. And Sarah lived, here you go right here, Sarah lived 30 years, and he begot Nahor, right? Then Sarah lived after he begot Nahor 200 years, and he begot sons and daughters. Now here we go. Just taking us right to Nimrod. And Nahor lived 920 years, and he begot Terah. So Terah is the Lord of hosts for Nimrod. Let that frame. So he said Terah, and Nahor lived after he begot Terah 109 years, and he begot sons and daughters. And Terah lived 70 years, and he begot Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. Right? So like I said before, you can see that this timeline, they hook like this timeline. So now I'm gonna go and I'm gonna give you some information on this guy Osflag, whatever his name. Here we go. This is what it means. So you never would have figured that, the Assyrians, but what you're gonna find out, the Chaldeans is Israelites. And they the people that's, when the Most High says they had other sons and daughters, they Hebrews. Check it out. It says Arphad is a significant figure in the genealogy records of the Bible, primarily noted for his role in the lineage of Shem. See that? You never would have figured this man out of Shem lineage, as the lineage of Shem, one of Noah's sons. His mention in the scriptures provides insight into the post-flood generation and the spread of humanity across the earth, right? Then it says, Arphaxad is first introduced in the book of Genesis, where he is listed as a descendant of Shem. Genesis 10:22 and 24 states, the sons of Shem. Here you go, right here. This is what I was talking about. So it says, the sons of Shem, Edom. Okay, well, who is Edom? Edom, one of the people that's with Nimrod. When it says, when they had the great giant war, Edom, the kingdom of Edom, right here. So Edom, Asher, this is the Syrians right here. So there's two people, two sons, two nations out of Shem. Edom, Asher, then here go Arphaxad. See that? So all these first three boys right here, these are nations that we reading about over in surrounding the Tower of Babel. Okay? Say Lud, Aram, the sons of Aram, Uz, Hud, Gether, Mash. Arphaxad was a father of Shelah, and Shelah was the father of Eber. This passage places Arphaxad in the line leading to Eber. So if you understand who Eber is, that's where you get the word Hebrew, from Eber. So right before that is where you get Alpha. See, from whom the term Hebrew is derived. Further genealogical details are provided in Genesis 11, verses 10 to 13. This is the account of Shem. 2 years after the flood, when Shem was 100 years old, I just read this, he became a father of Arphaxad. So Shem is the father of this dude, right here, that we're reading about in Judah. Okay, ain't that something? So check it out. This is the account of Shem. 200 years after the flood, when Shem was 100 years old, he's the father of Arphaxad. And after he had become the father of Arphaxad, Shem lived 500 years. See that? And had other sons and daughters. And when Arphaxad was 35 years old, he became the father of Shelah. This account highlights Arphaxad's place in the early post-Diluvian world and his role in the continuation of Shem's line. See that? He's a Hebrew. So let me read a couple more. This is the historical and theological significance. Arphaxad's position in the genealogy is crucial for understanding the development of the Semitic people. As a descendant of Shem, Arphaxad is part of the lineage that leads to Abraham, making him an ancestor of the Israelites. See that? And so these the Babylonians. They came and destroyed Israel. And the Israelites, by extension, a full barrel, okay, Jesus Christ. The connection underscores the fulfillment of God's promises through Abrahamic covenant, which is central to the biblical narrative. Any comments so far? What you think? Is this making any sense to anybody? Okay. Go over here.
Shalom. Yes, sir, it's making sense. And it makes sense. When I first read Judith, my thought was, oh, another Arphaxad. How convenient. But it never occurred to me that this was actually Shem's son.
Right, exactly. And this is what it is that carried off the Israelites. They got Hebrew lineage, and so what you have to understand about it, they didn't intermingle, but they still their origins. Their forefather is Arphaxad. It says the name Arphaxad means it is of Hebrew origin, and it means stronghold of the Chaldeans. Ain't that something?
Yes,
Stronghold
sir.
of the Chaldeans. He is a biblical figure mentioned in the book of Genesis as a descendant of Shem, one of Noah's sons, and is considered the forefather of the Chaldeans. So this dude here is the forefather of the Chaldeans, the very people that came and delivered. I mean, they put the Israelites in captivity. Want that something? Let me go on out here and see if I can get some else out of this. Yeah, that's crazy. So I was like, what's this? I mean, what's really going on? Because we ain't looking at it like that. we see that and then another thing that was revealing to me was Shem had 5 sons. You know, we always dealing with uh with Noah's sons. But where the drama started there was with uh Shem's sons. Let me get this right quick, then I'm gonna fucking open it up. Anybody have any questions? Then we'll pick a scripture. So when you go to Genesis 14, like I was saying, we were just in 11. So you go to Genesis 14, and here you go right here, chapter 14. I don't know if anybody knows the significance of this. This is when they had the 1,000 giant army war, right? It says in chapter 1, verse 1, chapter 4, verse 1, chapter 14, verse 1. And it came to pass in the days of Arphel, king of Shinar, right? See that? Eric, this is one of Shem's. He tied the Shem. Elkanah, king of Elam. See that? Elam. They go Elam. These made war with Barak, king of Solomon, with the Bersha, king of Gomorrah. So these people is descendants from Shem. You would assume. So I don't think me looking at it, they had diluted themselves. They had polluted themselves. They was descendants of Shem, but they had done like Esau done with the Horites. But it's not told to us. It's been hidden in the fact that they come out of Shem's lineage. Okay, I just thought I'd shine a light on that, so you encourage somebody to do their research if they, if they was interested in that. Any other comments on that?
Yes,
Okay.
sir. Brother Leonard, it's eye-opening because in the first verse of chapter 1 of Judith, we read that he ruled over the Medes, and
Exactly.
that's the Medes and the Persians are the ones during that captivity where they were now allowed to return, and it's something because that he basically there was a Shemite ruling over the same nation or the nations that we've been reading about that had them captive. And it was during that captivity that we read from Nehemiah and everybody how they were able to return. So,
Exactly. We also, with me from research that I was doing, it was not troubling, but you had 3 kings. He used the 3 Persian kings to deliver the Israelites. He used Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes. Now you know why. Ain't that something? And now, like we was talking the first of the year, or about 6 months ago, how all of a sudden now the Persians, which is we know now they out of Abraham, they out of Shem's lineage, they open up their archives. They the ones now which they came with the most hardest evidence on who we are as Israelite people. They open up their archives. So that's Cyrus, Darius, and Artaxerxes. It's crazy. So, with that being said, somebody got to want to pick a scripture, and then we'll break that scripture down, and then we'll close out. Somebody got a scripture they want to read?
Shalom. Yes, sir. In Jeremiah, beginning at verse 4, and command them to say unto their masters, Thus said the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, Thus shall ye say unto your masters, I have made the earth, the man and the beast that are upon the ground by my great power and by my outstretched arm, and have given it unto whom it seemed meet unto me. And now I have given all these lands into the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, my servant, and the beasts of the field have I given him also to serve him. And in all nations shall serve him, and his son's son, until the very time of his land come. And then many nations and great kings shall serve themselves of him. Verse 8, and it shall come to pass that the nation of the kingdom which will not serve the same Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, and that will not put their neck under the yoke of the king of Babylon, that nation will I punish, said the Lord, with the sword and with the famine and with the pestle, until I have consumed them by his hand.
Okay.
When you were talking about Nebuchadnezzar and that the Lord had told him to do these things, here in Jeremiah 27 is this is another part of it, that when he was telling him what to do and to command the people, and that what would happen if they didn't listen.
Right. So, and then the crazy part about it is now we know that they related.
Yes, sir.
People related to the Israelites. I would never figured that. But yeah, so now we see why he's giving them, called them, and then giving them his authority. Yeah.
Yes,
Somebody
sir.
else? Yeah. Somebody else had something? Okay. So yeah, that's to start shining a light on that. So with that being said, we got our men's advanced Bible study tomorrow night. The women can come in through YouTube. So with that being said, I wanted to say shalom, shalom, and another shalom. See everybody tomorrow. Okay.
Shalom, everyone.
Shalom.
I highly recommend that you get this book and you read it, because it's a must that you understand who the God head is in the order that's in the Old Testament and Tanakh, because it's not the same as in the New Testament. And when you read this and you get an understanding, then the scriptures open up, and then you begin to understand. So I highly recommend that you get this book. It's the Elohim of Israel, and it's a breakdown on the word Elohim and who the God of Israel is, and the Godhead.